So today we'll be covering 19.1. The last lesson we had to do 18 point whatever, 18 point whatever. All of chapter 18 is a snooze fest. Today, I think it's better, kind of, whatever you want to call it. So first, we're talking about Sadie Frown. I don't know why she's frowning all the time. Maybe because she's from Poland. Which she is. She's 13 years old and from Poland, and she remembers seeing the Statue of Liberty when she arrived in the US. Like Sadie, a lot of people, millions actually, millions of people came to America seeking opportunity, but often found challenges and dangers instead. And problems like included, low wages, which real. And overcrowded buildings, poor sanitation, and widespread disease. I love that. So the land of opportunity, which is America, was not easy, and immigrants had to struggle to survive. So urbanization is when lots of people move to cities and cities grow quickly. We know this, right? And let's talk about why these cities grew so fast in the 1800s. Like, first of all, we already know this: industrialization, technology advances. We know this too, like electric lights and powerful machines, like helped like factories keep going. And also immigration is how cities grew really fast, because people fled famine, war, or religious persecution in Europe, because they had a lot of that, and they came to US cities for work. They also had better jobs than farms. Like, factory work paid, I mean, even if it was low, like it was better than declining like farming opportunities. And workers had really grueling 12-hour shifts, and they had to live near factories. Jobs were dangerous and boring, like repetitive and monotonous. Like, immigrants often lived near others who shared their language and customs for comfort. That's why we have like Chinatown shit. Sorry, I can't say that. And early factories relied on rivers for water power and transport, which meant seasonal limitations, like cold winters stopped work. Steam engine allowed factories to be built in cities near workers and resources. City industries. Let's give an example. Pittsburgh, bro. They got a lot of armpits in Pittsburgh. Not really. They had steel. Chicago had meat packing, which is makes sense, I guess. And New York had clothing and finance, and Detroit had automobiles. There were a lot of problems caused by fast city growth, like housing shortages and poor living conditions, crowded and inefficient transportation, communication difficulties, and social equality based on class, like rich versus poor, race, religion, and ethnicity. And they also had really corrupt local politics. Um, so yeah, like also a multinational metropolis, metro is that how you actually say it? Metropolis is a huge city with people from like many different countries, and yeah. And so the key to successful urbanization, like, some towns became big cities while others didn't. Four major things helped cities grow around 1900, which was electricity, or sorry, electric lighting, better communication, and transportation inside the city, and skyscrapers. Many newcomers that came to cities faced problems like no good transportation, crowded housing, no clean water or proper sanitation, and no steady light or energy. Thomas Edison, we love our Eddie boy, Thomas Edison, patented the incandescent light bulb. In 1880. It made homes and factories brighter and safer. Power plants started opening in cities in 1882 to provide electricity. And Nikola Tesla developed AC, alternating current, which allowed electricity to travel far. And this let cities spread over bigger areas. Factories could run 24/7, which increased production and needing more workers. Cities also started illuminating streets so life and business continued at night. Um, to the telephone, patented in 1876, replaced the telegraph for faster communication, and by 1900, there were 1.5 million telephones in the US. Some were private, some shared party lines, which party lines are when neighbors shared the same line. And instant communication helped business. There was more order, which meant more production, and more workers needed, which meant the city would grow more. And people, there's also kind of a big problem that people needed to travel inside cities like efficiently from home to work to shops. The early solution was the omnibus, which was like a big horse drawn carriage. Like, okay, I can't draw a horse clearly. Oh my gosh. And then a horse car, which is like carriage on metal tracks for a smoother ride. That sounds stupid. Carriage on a metal track, bro. What the frick does that mean? The problem with horses is that they needed to rest. Like, they're living creatures, you know? And they also left manure and on the streets. They left poop everywhere, bro. And so we had new solutions like the electric trolley. Um Made in 1887 by Frank Sprague. I don't know how to say that. It's like a horse car, but powered by electricity. And we also had cable cars in San Francisco, 1873, which used like pulleys to climb steep hills. And we also had L trains, or also called elevated trains, above the street to avoid crowded roads. This was in New York City, 1868, Boston, 1887, and Chicago, 1892. Also we had subways, which are underground trains. Obviously, you know what a subway is. In Boston in 1897, followed by New York and then others. And like Boston and New York had, well, Boston had one sided beef with New York. Me and Brooke learned about that. Anyways. So okay, cities in the east could not expand outwards because land was already taken and rivers or the coast like really limited growth. People needed to live close to their jobs, shops, and other important city services. And so their solution was to build upwards. Taller buildings made like more sense because land was really expensive and having a tall building made businesses look prestigious. And the first skyscraper, the very first one, was the home insurance building. Home insurance building in Chicago in 1885, which was 10 stories high. Engineers could build higher thanks to steel construction. Like we know, we had a major production of steel. And they also needed another invention, which was elevators. And in 1889, Otis Elevator Company installed the very first electric elevator invented by Elisha Otis. And so the impact was that skyscrapers allowed crowded cities to grow upward and businesses could build impressive offices downtown. Even as cities grew, though, they had really serious problems like congestion, pollution, crime, and disease. Congestion, like crowded streets and homes, pollution, like dirty dirty air, water, and streets. Crime, like theft and violence, and disease, just, we know disease. What the heck? So working class families lived in tenement houses. Meant, which are just cheap, crowded apartment buildings. And poor ventilation and plumbing made disease really common. Like diseases like typhoid, I don't know, cholera, and yellow fever. A lot of white men nowadays have this. Let's not talk about that. Anyways, Memphis lost over 10,000 people to cholera. 10,000. Memphis. I get. This was in 1873, and also they lost these people to yellow fever in 1878. 7 through 79. And by the late 1880s, cities like New York City, Baltimore, Chicago, and New Orleans started sewage pumping systems to manage waste. An overcrowding example was Manhattan, New York City, 1900, 50,000 tenement houses. Lower East Side was up to 800 people per acre. And so, yeah. Churches acted to help people live better lives through the social gospel. Their idea was that Christians should care about life on earth just as much as the afterlife. And their advocate was Reverend Washington Gladden. Churches also offered gyms, libraries, and evening classes on health. Like, I wish they still did this, right? And other religious groups helped too, like, we know this one, the Salvation Army and the YMCA, the Young Men's Christian Association. Young Christian Association. Okay. And the social gospel is the belief that religion should help improve people's daily lives. Anyways. Settlement houses. Settlement houses started in the 1890s to help urban poor, especially women. The leaders were Jane Addams, Hull House, Chicago in 1889, and Lillian Wald, the Henry Street Settlement, NYC, 1895. They provided childcare, classes and libraries, gyms, and healthcare. They also gave college-educated women jobs in social work, and sometimes this sometimes caused friction with immigrant women who had their own ideas about improving life. Settlement settlement houses didn't just help people directly, they also inspired like political changes, like housing laws, child labor laws, worker compensation laws. And key figures were Florence Kelly, who worked with James Adams in Chicago, then with Lillian Wald in New York. They helped to create the National Child Labor Committee. Sorry, to fight child labor, which is good. They also helped push for the Children's Bureau in 1912. Part of the U.S. Department of Labor, and Julia Lathrop. Lathrop. She was a former Hull House resident and the first woman to lead a federal agency, which was the Children's Bureau, appointed by President Taft. Um, Settlement house workers also became leaders in women's suffrage, which was the movement for women's rights to vote, and anti war movements, people opposing the US's involvement in World War I. Anyways, that's it. Thank you. Bye.